We are back on the record. Counsel for Town of Ocean City has concluded his cross-examination of witness Perkins. Do any other parties wish to cross-examine this witness?
MEA does not.
No cross from OPC.
Okay, hearing no additional cross-examination, Mr. Gunderson, you have an opportunity for redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just very briefly, Mr. Perkins, Mr. Maloney asked you questions about publications that Mr. Sullivan has authored. Are you familiar with any of Mr. Sullivan's publications that speak to the importance of using simulations in considering the visual impact of a renewable energy project?
Yes, I am familiar. And I think I can. Mr. Sullivan was a primary author of the Guide to Evaluating Visual Impact Assessments for Renewable Energy Projects.
And what did that publication say about the use of simulations?
Use of what?
Simulations.
Oh, sorry.
I'll take a specific quotation, but basically simulations are an important component of VIAs for renewable energy projects, and their primary use is to help the impact analyst assess the visual contrast created by the project. And simulations also help project stakeholders and makers visualize a project and respond to development proposals.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney asked you a series of questions regarding the visibility of the current 12 megawatt layout. Do you recall those questions?
Generally, yes.
And is it your opinion that the 8 megawatt layout that the commission reviewed when it approved the project in 2017 would also have been visible during daytime conditions under certain clear conditions?
Yes, as the simulation in my exhibit, the turbines are visible under both scenarios under clear conditions, considering the 8 or the 12 megawatt turbine.
And is it your opinion that the 8 megawatt layout that the commission reviewed when it approved the project in 2017 would also have been visible during sunset times?
Yes, that is correct. Under clear conditions, it would be visible during sunset.
And would the same be true at sunrise time?
Yes, with my usual qualifier that it strongly depends on the position of the sun.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to object to this line of questioning about comparing something to quote unquote what the commission approved in 2017. The commission did not approve any location in 2017. It approved size, it approved some rough descriptions of it, and it directed the parties to work through the BOEM process and in collaboration to take steps to locate it in a way that minimized the impact. So the idea that, and which never happened, so the idea that there is some commission approval of some location in 2017 that now is sacrosanct and that everything is measured against is not true. Commission approved the turbine size. The commission approved ORIC credits or a range of turbine size, but the commission said, go out and find a way to site these things in a way that really minimizes use your commercially best reasonable efforts to do that. So there is not some measurable threshold before the commission to say this site compared to another site or another layout.
That is a fair point. The 2017 order did not specify the location, the precise location of these turbines. So, Mr. Gunderson, let's move along.
Certainly. Let's see. Okay, Mr. Perkins, what is your expert opinion as to the comparative visual impact of the original 8-megawatt layout that was presented in the company's OBRAC application in 2016 as compared to the current layout?
Objection relevant.
Mr. Maloney, you had plenty of an opportunity to discuss these comparative effects between the different size turbines, so the witness can respond.
I hear you. Thank you.
Yes. Regarding the 8-megawatt turbine, as I stated in my direct testimony, and I'm just going to make sure that I'm doing that and say it because it involves. The 8-megawatt turbine, as viewed from the northern portion of Ocean City, specifically at 146th Street, the layout takes up approximately 18 degrees of the visible. And I should mention that's roughly, less than 10% of the entire seascape that's available. When considering the 12-megawatt turbine, it tends to cluster that development slightly further from shore, and it takes up only a 7-degree portion of the visible horizon, which is significantly smaller. I think in terms of noticeability, I believe that the presence of the 12-megawatt turbines in a cluster will be less noticeable because of its occupation on the horizon. And therefore, I think it presents a minimization and reduction of the potential visual impacts associated with the project.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions of Mr. Perkins? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. Mr. Perkins, I'm going to ask you about your direct testimony on page 10 first. We can go there. Excuse me, page 8. Figure 1.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Perkins, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. I am on page 8 and viewing figure 1.
Commissioner O'Donnell, can you hear us? The witness could hear you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm having some audio problems here. You might want to go to another commissioner.
Okay, well, we'll go to Commissioner Herman. And Commissioner Herman, if you're ready.
I am. Good afternoon, Mr. Perkins. Mr. Perkins, you've a couple of your exhibits, and we've been talking a lot about 146th Street, I believe, is where all the pictures were from, and that's about as far north as you can go in Ocean City before you hit Delaware. So I get the pictures that are, or the simulations that are from 146th Street, but then you've also had some discussion about the Ocean City Beach. What do you mean when you say Ocean City Beach?
Yes, Commissioner, and you know, we often have trouble naming the visual sim because we do cover so many locations, and Ocean City Beach refers to the portion of beach that includes the boardwalk, what I would consider the sort of more popular location within Ocean City.
Okay, so that would run from, I don't know, about First Street down to, can't remember how many streets, but it's somewhere between 80 and 100 blocks from 146th Street. Is that right?
I think that's a fair assessment, yes.
Okay. And the other question that I had was Mr. Sullivan's direct testimony on page 10 provided numbers about, some math about the visual impact from various heights. And I was curious if you agreed with those or disagreed with those. I wrote down page 10. My page numbers are all a little messed up, but it's in that vicinity.
Understood, yes. So Commissioner, the practice we use, we also do these calculations, and it's to determine what portion of the turbine would occur behind the horizon when considering curvature of the Earth. And our simulations do consider curvature of the Earth. We have a very slightly different model than Mr. Sullivan used, and therefore our numbers did not match exactly, but generally speaking, our numbers were very close to the numbers that Mr. Sullivan produced. And the takeaway from that is the simulations accurately depict how the Earth interacts with the turbines at these types of distances. And I should mention, we also include a fact action, which is field verified at the time of the simulations.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Perkins. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Donnell, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I've fixed my my issue with my audio, and Mr. Perkins, I apologize for that. I get a little technically challenged down here in the hinterlands of Southern Maryland sometimes. But I did want to ask you about page 10, excuse me, page 8, if we could go there, of your direct testimony, figure 1. That is the layout of the 8 megawatt turbines. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, Commissioner O'Donnell, that is the what of the 8 mega, what?
Layout.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And the 19.5 miles is basically from the state line, roughly thereabouts, whether it's 144th, 145th, 156th. It's North Ocean City, and the closest turbine is the turbine in the northwest corner of that particular kind of layout. Is that right?
That's correct, sir, yes.
In other words, if you swung that line down, it would the turbines as you pass them would get further and further away from the point of the arrow on that line, much like a compass, correct?
That's correct.
If the pivot point was at the other end of the arrow. Okay, so doesn't that line kind of approach that southwest facing line? If you drew a line from the south along the southwest facing area there, doesn't the 19.5 mile line kind of approach that visual at the closest turbine at almost a 90-degree angle to that line if you drew it from the northwest to the southeast along that western facing front?
That's a reasonable assumption, sir. So when we do these
Kind of
distances, we actually draw a circle, and we give that circle, we give it additional radius until it hits shore, and that's how we find the closest turbine to shore. And oftentimes it can be a little deceiving on which one is actually the closest, but we have verified that in fact the 19.5 is closest.
I know that is true. Can be very deceptive. I appreciate that. But isn't that very close to a right angle, that line, that 19.5-mile line to the other face of that layout to approximate a perpendicular, a 90-degree angle right there?
It appears to be very close to that, yes.
Okay, thank you. So let's go down to the 12-megawatt turbines on page 9. So the closest turbine in that layout is 21.5 miles. It may be something less than that in the end, or something more than that, excuse me, in the end. But isn't that more of a, to use Mr. Maloney's word, more of an oblique angle, not a right angle?
When you say an oblique angle, are you referring to the arrangement of the turbines or its
No,
position?
I'm referring to a viewer standing on the left end of that 21.5-mile line, viewing that layout of those turbines, those proposed turbines. The way that line approaches that closest turbine, unlike the previous drawing, which simulated a right angle, this is more of an oblique angle that the viewer would see that layout at the closest turbine on the other end of that line.
Yes, I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay, so having said that, I want to take you to 2 of your simulations and just verify a couple things from my understanding. So first of all, nighttime simulation, 8-megawatt wind turbine in GPW2. It's Skipjack Exhibit 4, page 22 of 29. Let me know when you're with me.
I'm with you.
Okay. So in that layout, that is the layout in figure 1 on page 8, correct? That's the old layout. Okay. And the new layout, the 12-megawatt turbines in Exhibit GPW2, which is Skipjack Exhibit page 4 of 20, Exhibit 4, page 23 of 29, is the new layout of figure 2 that we just discussed with the more oblique angle, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, I think you were trying to explain this, but my country mouse mind tries to think of things more simply. So if I look at the simulation on page 22 of 29 in those nighttime simulations, it goes about 2.5 times further across that page, the red lights, the line of red lights, than page 23 of 29 simulation. One looks like to be, and I'm just using rough numbers here, 3 inches, and the other one looks to be about 7 inches. Am I seeing that? Am I viewing that right?
You are viewing it correctly. I think the discrepancy is, GWP2, which is page 20, relates directly to GWP2, page 22. So that if those two are compared, the turbines are coincident in their location.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying it looks like, to me, to the viewer, the 12-megawatt turbines take up a lot less of the same picture than the 8-megawatt turbines do.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was understanding that correctly. Thank you. Let me take you to 2 other exhibits real quick. These are photos that you provided to us. GWP8 and GWP7. What are the purposes of including those 2 photographs?
Just going to catch up with you, Commissioner, here.
Take your
GWP8.
time. Yep,
Yes.
take your time. What are the
So I'm at
purposes
that
of those
location.
2?
The purpose of these was to accompany my rebuttal testimony regarding the fact that the Ocean City it had been characterized in the past by Mr. Sullivan as having pristine skies and very little on the shoreline, well, offshore and onshore. And so I think that was a slight mischaracterization of the area. And so I provided these photographs in order to show that, you know, Ocean City is a popular destination. It's got a lot of infrastructure and light. And essentially that light that occurs on shore serves to diminish the visibility of the turbines at night. And additionally, the other view that I provided, which shows an elevated view from the Carousel Hotel in Ocean City, demonstrates that, in fact, at times, there is a fair amount of ship traffic. And it's actually really interesting. So none of this, well, generally, a lot of this ship traffic is not visible from ground level viewpoints. But once you're elevated, you can see all of that ship traffic and the anchorage areas. And so it was just to dispute the assertion that that in fact the skies are pristine and untouched.
Okay. And they say clear conditions, but you can't really tell if the conditions are clear. In other words, you could have some overcast in those photos, right?
Yeah, we did observe the most distant vessel in that photograph is 23.2 miles. So I think it's generally representative of what we would consider.
Okay, fair enough. So you were talking about visibility, not necessarily ceiling heights or cloud cover.
That is correct, sir.
All right, thank you. Let me just check my notes here because some of my questions have been answered. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify those 2 points.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no additional questions from the remaining commissioners, are there any parties that wish to inquire of the witness based on his responses to the commissioners?
We have no additional questions.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. The witness is excused. Mr. Gunderson, we're at now 4:30 in the afternoon. I didn't know if any parties have time constraints or if we wish to bring on your pair of joint witnesses, Mr. Walker and Ms. Weber.
Yes, Your Honor, we're happy to continue to proceed.
Okay, Mr. Maloney?
I'm fine, Your Honor.
Okay. Madam Court Reporter?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, and any other parties object? Okay, we will begin with the next witnesses, Mr. Gunderson.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll call Brady Walker and Joy Weber to the stand, and my colleague Diana Krever will handle these witnesses.
And if the witnesses turn on their mics, raise your right hand.
Okay, I just need to plug someone in real quick. Oh, yeah, she didn't make it in here. See. Okay, let's see. We have, now here, we have Mr. Walker and Mr. Weber.
That's correct. Ms. Walker and Weber, if you could just say something to activate your microphones.
Hello.
We're here.
There we go. That did the trick for Ms. Weber. Mr. Walker, could you say something more?
Sure. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, do you affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give and the matter now pending is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Good afternoon, Ms. Weber. Could you please state your name and business address?
My name is Joy Weber, and my office is 1 Park Place, Annapolis.
And can you state your title?
I'm a market affairs manager for Orsted.
And what position did you hold previously?
Previously, I was a market affairs manager for Deepwater.
Sure. And how long were you and just being specific, which region did you cover as a market affairs manager? Which region do you cover now?
The Mid-Atlantic. I've been working in the Mid-Atlantic for up until about 3 months ago.
Sure. And Mr. Walker, can you please state your name and business address?
Yes, Brady Walker, 1 Park Place, Annapolis, Maryland.
And what is your current title?
Market manager in the Mid-Atlantic, focusing on Maryland and Delaware.
And how long have you been in that position?
Since February of this year.
And you each have a document before you that has been marked as Skipjack Exhibit 3, entitled Rebuttal Testimony of Joy Weber and Brady Walker, consisting of 8 pages and 5 exhibits.
Yes.
And was this testimony prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections, additions, or deletions to your testimony?
No.
If I asked you the same questions today that are contained in your rebuttal testimony, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the testimony true and correct to the best of your information, knowledge, and belief?
Yes.
Yes.
Your Honor, we respectfully move Skipjack Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Skipjack Exhibit number 3 is moved into evidence.
And the witnesses are now available for cross-examination.
Thank you. We'll start with Town of Ocean City. Mr. Maloney, can you hear us?
Thank
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Weber and Mr. Walker. The Commission's May 17, 2017 award specifically conditioned the award with a requirement that Skipjack, quote, continue to work with Maryland citizens and local, state, and federal authorities in addressing all applicable visual and other impacts of public concern. And then there was other language also in the order directing regular involvement, consultation, and collaboration with the stakeholders, especially on the issue of visual impact. Since May 17, 2017, what regular impact, collaboration, or consultation has Skipjack had with the mayor and council of Ocean City?
Sure, I'll take this one. We have always recognized the town of Ocean City to be one of our most important stakeholders in this process. And I made it a point to make sure that I spoke with the mayor of Ocean City as frequently as possible, beginning immediately when I started working with Deepwater. So we've met quite a few times.
Well, when you say quite a few times, in fact, there was a meeting on April 17th, 2017, only after the Ocean City Mayor and Council invited it before the commission's order. Isn't that correct?
I'm looking at my timeline. April 17th, 2019 is the meeting you're referring to?
2017, before the commission's order.
So your question is, was there a meeting in April of 2017?
Yes, only after the mayor and council initiated it and invited Skipjack's participation. Isn't that correct?
I actually don't recall. I was still working with the Rifkin law firm at that time and wasn't a full-time employee of Deepwater.
When did you, and when you say Deepwater, explain to the record what Deepwater's role is here vis-a-vis Skipjack.
Sure. Deepwater Wind was the previous owner and developer of the Skipjack project prior to being acquired by Orsted.
And when did you go to work for Deepwater?
I began working at Deepwater in December of 2017.
Okay. So there were no other meetings that you're aware of in 2017 other than the meeting that the mayor and council set up and invited Deepwater. Isn't that correct?
I don't recall the meeting you're speaking of.
All right. So you're not even aware of that meeting, correct?
Not off the top of my head.
And there were no meetings with the mayor and council in 2018, were there?
I believe I met with the mayor in 2018.
I mean, at first, we'll get to the mayor in a minute. I'm talking about meeting with the mayor and council.
The full mayor and council?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Can you clarify your question?
Sure, I said the full mayor and council.
So,
All right, I believe the witness said she met with the mayor in 2018. Did you meet with the council in 2018?
not that I recall. Not that I recall. I know that Deepwater did present to the mayor and town council. I don't recall the exact day.
Well, that presentation was in April of 2017, wasn't it?
I don't recall specifically.
And in fact, the meeting with the mayor was only a brief meeting to just indicate who you were and what you were doing. Isn't that correct?
Which meeting are you referring to now?
The one meeting you had with the mayor in 2018.
I believe I met with him multiple times in 2018 and more.
The mayor is going to testify about these tomorrow. So my question is, what dates did you meet with the mayor in 2018?
So I don't have them specifically listed off the top of my head every time that I had a meeting with the mayor in the year 2018. We met formally and informally at various events where offshore wind was the topic of discussion.
I'm not talking about when you run into the mayor at a community meeting or something. I'm talking about when you sit down with the mayor in a meeting with him or his staff or anybody else and try to get the city's collaboration and participation in this. When did you do that at all in 2018?
Objection, asked and answered. She's described meeting with the mayor in 2018.
She hasn't described it with much detail. Let's see if we could respond to Mr. Maloney's question one more time. And Ms. Weber, if you don't know the answer or don't recall, that's the answer.
Okay, so meetings in 2018 with the mayor is what we're asking about right now.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
I have in my record that on February 5th in 2018, I met with the mayor and one of my colleagues and Mr. McGeehan.
Okay. Any other time in 2018?
I'm not sure that I'll be able to give a complete list at this time. I'm happy to dig through and get back to you if the exact number of times is important. I would like to say that the mayor does have my personal cell phone number because we have chatted many times that are not listed in a record somewhere.
Ms. Weber, I'm asking specifically about efforts by Skipjack or Deepwater to collaborate and consult with the city about its plans here. And you've told us that on February 5th, 2018, you had a meeting with the mayor and Mr. McGeehan. At that meeting, did you or anyone else at Skipjack or Deepwater disclose the plans to go from 8 megawatts to 12 megawatt turbines?
On February 5th, 2018, the topic of a 12 megawatt turbine was, I don't believe that we covered the 12 megawatt turbine. on February 5th in 2018.
And in fact, throughout the rest of 2018, Skipjack and Deepwater were actively investigating the substitution of 6 megawatt turbines with 12 megawatt turbines. Isn't that correct?
Objection?
What's your objection?
It's mischaracterizing the facts. They were never considering they were approved in 2017 for an 8 megawatt. Well, the turbine used as a design basis in the application was an 8 megawatt turbine. They were never considering a 6 megawatt turbine.
It said 6 or 8. Use the phrase 8.
It did not.
The question here, we're not going to get hung up on the 8. The question is, in 2018, Deepwater and then later Skipjack were actively involved in investigating moving to a 12 megawatt turbine. Isn't that correct?
I don't recall exactly when we started thinking about whether to switch to a 12 megawatt turbine.
And at no time in 2018, you or anyone else from Skipjack or Deepwater consult the mayor or council about moving to a 12 megawatt turbine. Isn't that correct?
I can't confirm that.
And at no time for the rest of 2018 did you or anyone else at Skipjack or Deepwater have any meetings at all with the mayor and council. Isn't that correct? The mayor or the council. Isn't that correct?
At no time in the year 2018 did we have meetings with the mayor and council.
Did you have any other meetings other than the February 5th one? And I'm not talking about running into the mayor at a cocktail party or at a community meeting of some type. I'm talking about where you sat down either with the mayor, the council, or the city staff to talk about the project. Other than February 5th, 2018, did you do that at any other time in 2018?
I did.
And when was that?
On April 3rd,
Withdrawn.
I met with, sorry?
Objection. I just wanted, this could have been asked in discovery. I think Ms. Weber can do her best to recall, but if this had been asked in discovery, she could have provided a detailed timeline of her meetings.
I agree. It does seem that the witness is unprepared to go through her calendar, at least on this point. I'm going to sustain the objection. This is the type of material that could have been.
Your Honor, Chairman, we didn't get a rebuttal testimony on some of these issues till May 22nd.
What happened, Mr. Maloney, on May 22nd?
We didn't get her rebuttal testimony that raised some of these issues until May 22nd.
Discovery's been open in this case since December.
I mean, we have a right to ask her what she did to come. She's come in here and said that she's consulted with the city, and we know it's not true. And we have a right to test her recollections about this. This is cross-examination.
She'll do, she can obviously do her best. We're just happy to provide a detailed timeline and would have been happy to provide that in discovery had it been asked.
I'll rephrase the questions.
Okay, tread carefully, Mr. Maloney. Counsel for Skipjack does raise a good point here.
Well, I'm going to phrase them in a way that nobody can object to them. Not even the most vociferous counsel. The Skipjack went ahead and filed its application for 12 megawatt turbines with BOEM without ever telling the mayor and council of Ocean City that they were going to do that they in fact had done that. Isn't that correct?
That is not correct.
Well, when do you say that Skipjack advised the mayor and council of Ocean City that rather than considering a 12 megawatt turbine, that they had made a decision to go ahead and file it?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Sure. When do you say that Skipjack told the mayor and council that they had gone ahead and filed an application with BOEM for the 12 megawatt turbines at a new site? When do you say they told them that?
When did I tell Ocean City that we were filing a COP which included a 12 megawatt turbine?
Yes.
So on July 15th, when we met with the mayor, we told him that we were considering a 12 megawatt turbine.
Correct. Then you went ahead and filed something later in the summer without telling the mayor and council that you went ahead and filed it. And it wasn't until you made a public filing with the commission that any information was ever available to let the mayor and council know that that's where you were going. Isn't that correct?
So I let the mayor know that we were considering a 12 megawatt turbine before filing a confidential letter about our selection choice for the 12 megawatt turbine. I gave some confidential information in that way because I was trying to be forthcoming with information about how we were developing the project. The problem is a lot of the information around exactly when and how and why we were choosing a 12 megawatt turbine was commercially confidential. And so while we were still in active negotiations with the turbine supplier, I had to be careful about what I said.
Well, in fact, you went ahead and privately notified the commission and later publicly notified the commission that you were moving to the 12 megawatt turbines. Isn't that correct?
We confidentially alerted the commission that we had made that decision.
Well,
And then we publicly.
Objection, can you let the witness finish the question?
Go ahead.
Finish the response?
We confidentially let the commission know that we had made a decision to use the 12 megawatt turbines and then later made that public. I believe the exact dates were July 17th, 2019 for the confidential filing, and then September 24th.
Mr. Chairman, I want to let the commission know that, in fact, we sent a discovery request to Skipjack for any and all communications they had with Ocean City concerning the selection of the 12 megawatt turbine, including the date of the communications, the subject matter of the communications, and the identity of anyone involved in the communications, and provide copies of the communications. And if there were no such communications, please state why. And their answer, besides some boilerplate objections, was only the most modest public disclosures of the commission. And we're talking about item number 1-35. So we have asked in great detail for this
Objection,
information.
can you let us know which DR you're speaking of first? And second of all, I believe that DR only did not ask about 2018.
Council, hold on a second. Mr. Maloney, you said it was DR 1-35?
Yes, I did. And it didn't relate to any specific period of time.
Okay.
It related to 12 months. I have a
Related to 12 megawatt turbines, not all of her communications with Ocean City, which had been going on long before
Council,
the decision to make
Council,
for 12 megawatt. I'm sorry. Yes, Your Honor.
you're being argumentative. I need to stop you there. Make your objection and I'll recognize you. Okay. Why don't you look for Ocean City response DR 1-35. Do you have that? Mr. Maloney, is this an exhibit of yours?
Ocean City Exhibit 20.
Thank you.
I would
Okay,
simply Thank you, Your Honor. I was simply objecting to the characterization. This DR is specifically about the consideration of the General Electric Haliade X 12 megawatt wind turbine. It's not about all of the communications with Ocean City about the Skipjack project that would have happened prior to the consideration of this specific turbine model.
Mr. Chairman, I think the overwhelming majority of our focus is why we're here today, which is the 12 megawatt. And I have a suggestion.
Yes.
I'm not looking to get in a discovery fight about this. And I'm not looking to spend too much time about it because the mayor is going to testify that he rarely, if ever, heard from Skipjack. But I think we are entitled to sort of pin this down as to what they say they did to comply with the commission's absolute requirement that there be consultation and they work with us, which they didn't. And so I'm going to suggest that it's now 5 o'clock, that overnight, if the witness has a calendar or something, she can look at it and pull out and email, their counsel can email us what days she thinks she met with the mayor, council, or staff, and just send it to us. And that'll be the end of our discovery issue on this. And then I can ask her about these tomorrow when we reconvene, and we'll go on.
I'm going to object to that. We don't believe we have a discovery issue. We've responded to this request.
Can I finish?
I
Alternatively,
apologize. I thought you were finished.
alternatively, I can just impeach her with this request because the answer to the request only specifies like 2 communications, which were basically public, and doesn't say they ever communicated really otherwise. And I can take this and just go through and we can stipulate that what they say here is true, that this was the extent of their communications. I'm not looking to get in a big fight here, but this is a legitimate issue. They've called witnesses on it. We have. The commission ordered that there be very detailed consultation, and we never heard, we rarely, I don't want to say never, we rarely heard from them. And we certainly didn't have any meaningful information from them, as the mayor will tell. So I'd like to get this, and I have proposed one way to do it, which is to get her, she can give us a list of when she says she met with the city, and we can go from there.
Could offer.
Mr. Maloney, it sounds like, from what I've heard, I mean, you're attempting, obviously, to impeach Ms. Weber and either her recollection or her calendar, which she doesn't have readily available. When you cite to this data response, which I haven't looked at yet, marked as Ocean City Exhibit number 20, if I take what you say and stipulate that they don't have any information to provide, I think that also goes to your argument and could possibly contradict what Ms. Weber just said. Counsel for Skipjack, I'll leave it to you. How do you want to proceed here?
I mean, we're happy to proceed and for Ms. Weber to continue to testify as to what her recollection is. Mr. Maloney was asking about communications that happened before the 2017 order even came out. So that's, I think, why we're having this confusion here. He wasn't asking about, we're here about the change from an 8 to a 12 megawatt turbine, and he wasn't asking about that decision. He was going back to the beginning of their communication, and that's the information, you know, that she didn't provide in response to this request, because this request is about the 12 megawatt turbine. But she can certainly testify as to her recollections and their meetings, and we're happy to do that now. We don't need to break. We'd like to keep going.
Okay, well, we will keep her on the stand. That's the decision of Skipjack and counsel. Mr. Maloney, I got the sense you were not asking about communications prior to 2017. Is that correct?
I asked one foundational question. I'm interested in what they told us about the 12 megawatt and when. What did they tell us and when did they tell us?
That's my understanding. This is a very narrow scope regarding timing of when Skipjack knew that they were planning to move to a larger turbine, and at what point did they notify, if they notified, the mayor and the city council. So we could continue to proceed with examination by Mr. Maloney, although Mr. Maloney, you may not get the answers you want if the witness doesn't recall. So let's Let's see what more, if anything, she has to say.
All right. In April of 2019, Skipjack had already submitted, as we've had testimony, its COP for the 12 megawatt turbines to BOEM. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
And on June 4th of 2019, Skipjack wrote a confidential letter to the Public Service Commission telling the Public Service Commission that it was going to proceed with a 12 megawatt turbine and had filed an action with BOEM to seek COP approval. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And then, as you just testified a minute ago, on July 15, 2019, you told the mayor of Ocean City that Skipjack was considering moving to a 12 megawatt turbine. Isn't that correct?
Yes, we wrote, that's correct. When we include the 12 megawatt turbine in the COP, it's a consideration. It's not a decision because it's part of the envelope within the COP.
Let's focus on my question. You told the mayor on July 15, 2019, simply that Skipjack was considering moving to a 12 megawatt turbine, but no decision had been made. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
In fact, what you told the mayor was demonstrably false, because on April of 2019, Skipjack had already submitted the COP turbine application to BOEM, and on June 4th of 2019, it had written a letter to the Public Service Commission saying, quote, "I am writing to inform the commission that we plan to use the GE Haliade X12 megawatt turbine for the Skipjack project." Isn't that correct? Reading from the Orsted letter dated June 4th. Isn't that correct?
Okay. Can you please restate that question?
On June 4th of 2019, Orsted wrote to the commission in a confidential letter signed by you, Joy Weber, development manager, stating, quote, "I am writing to inform the commission that we plan to use the GE Haliade X12 megawatt turbine for the Skipjack project." Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And you also told the commission at that time that we have made significant commitments to General Electric, and as required by the order, we have consulted with representatives of the U.S. Department of Defense and representatives of the maritime industry regarding project siting and turbine model selection. And we provided DOD's siting clearinghouse with a Skipjack project introduction document stating the company's intent to use the turbines with a nameplate capacity of up to 12 megawatt turbines. That's what you told the commission on June the 4th, 2019. Isn't that correct?
I believe that we informed the commission of that on.
What's the objection?
Ocean City's council is mischaracterizing when that letter was filed. It is very confusing. The letter is dated June 4th, but it was actually filed in the docket July 17th, 2019. And I don't have the mail log number in front of me, but the date on the letter is incorrect. When you look in the docket of case 9431, you see that it was actually filed July 17th, 2019.
All right, give me one moment. I'll look in the docket myself. It was the previous combined docket with all the wind projects. Okay. All right, Mr. Maloney, do you stipulate there's a date it was filed and a date the letter was made?
Well, let me question her about it. The letter was actually prepared on June 4th, 2019. Isn't that correct? The date that the letter. And everything everything that you stated in that letter was true on June the 4th, 2019. Isn't that correct?
You know, I'm not sure that I agree with that statement. There was, if I could elaborate on that point, there was some confusion around when exactly a decision was made. And per the order from 2017, we needed to make sure that we let the commission know about changes like this. This is a material change. We wanted to make sure we let the commission know. So we were being conservative as possible as to when a decision was made. Internally, the decision to purchase components from this type of turbine had been made, but a turbine supplier agreement hadn't yet been signed. And so we were trying to make sure we were weighing exactly how certain that actual decision was when we were also purchasing components for other projects, like the New Jersey project.
The statements that you made on the letter dated June 4th, whenever it was docketed, were all true as of that date, such as we have determined to use the GE 12 megawatt turbine. We have consulted with DOD and the maritime industry regarding model selections. We have provided the clearinghouse with a document stating the DOD's siting clearinghouse with a document stating our company's intent to use the 12 megawatt turbines. We provided DOD with shape files and notional turbine coordinates for the 12 megawatt turbines. We provided DOD with coordinates for a project layout concerning 12 megawatt turbines. We met with the maritime industry, projected and presented the project's overview to various trade groups, maritime advisory, and other these things. And we filed a COP, a construction and operations plan, to BOEM on April 21, 2019, and forwarded a copy to the commission on May 3rd, 2019. And that COP included the 12 megabyte holiday dimensions and characteristics of the turbine envelope. All those things are true. Isn't that correct?
All of the stipulations as to the outreach and the filings are true. The definite decision as to exactly when we made the decision, that's the part that I'm not clear on.
Well, in fact, you had filed with BOEM a construction operations plan to build a 12 megawatt turbine on April 21st, 2019, and provided a copy to the commission on May 3rd, 2019. Isn't that true?
Which includes the 12 megawatt turbine as part of the envelope. That does not signify a decision had been made to use a 12 megawatt turbine.
And after having done all those things, filed the COPE with BOEM, given a copy to the commission, sent the matter to the clearinghouse at DOD with the detailed envelopes, sharing coordinates and everything else, then 2 months after all that, you said to the mayor on July 15, 2019, that we're considering going to the 12 megawatt turbine, but we're not true. Do you believe that that statement to the mayor was candid or accurate when you made it to him on July 15, 2019, given all the filings and events that had preceded it?
I do. All of the filings and events preceding it included the 12 megawatt turbine as part of our envelope of options that we were having permitted.
And in fact, you told the mayor on July 15, 2019, that Skipjack was considering a 12 megawatt turbine. That was a false statement, because the actual truth was, as you said in this letter, we had made a determination to go in that direction. Excuse me. And we had made many affirmative steps toward moving in that direction, none of which you disclosed to the mayor. Isn't that true?
Okay, we have an objection. What's the objection?
Asked and answered. She explained that the 12 megawatt turbine was in the envelope of 8 to 12 megawatts that was presented in the COP. She did not say a decision was made.
Mr. Maloney, she did answer that question of whether you were asking her about her candor with the mayor of Ocean City when she informed him on July 15th, 2019, whether they were using the larger turbine. And she responded that she was being candid. I think you're asking the same question again to an attempt to impeach her.
I think the commission can draw its own conclusions. After that, after July 15th, 2019, you had no other communications with the mayor and council for the rest of 2019. Isn't that correct?
We had formal communications through the space that the Public Service Commission has been conducting this investigation into this matter.
No, I'm not asking about any filings that have been made before the Public Service Commission. I'm talking about compliance with the commission's order, which directed you to Skipjack to work with the stakeholders, to consult and collaborate with the commission on these issues, to deal with to meet with and regularly engage here. You had no, other than the misleading communication on July 15th, you had no other, I'll rephrase the question, other than the communication on July 15th with the mayor, you had no other communications with the mayor in 2019 or the council or the staff regarding the 12 megawatt turbine project throughout 2019. Isn't that correct?
The July 2019 meeting with the mayor, in which I was being candid, was the last time that I met with the mayor in the year 2019. I do pledge that we would continue to meet with the mayor going forward. But that meeting in July of 2019, he made it very clear that he did not like the idea of a 12 megawatt turbine. And Ocean City has made it very clear that they do not want to see anything in regard to this project on the horizon. So communication could have been more frequent between July 2019 and January 20th.
Do you,
Maloney, you got your answer that you're trying to get.
thank you. Do you agree that in 2019 that you had no communications with the mayor and council or staff other than the July 15th meeting with the mayor?
Objection, asked and answered.
It hasn't been. It hasn't been asked or answered.
We know now that Ms. Weber had a meeting with the mayor on July 15th, 2019. My memory's not serving me if there's any others, but may have been asked and answered. Why don't we hear it one more time? Ms. Weber, have you had any other meetings with either the mayor or the city council, the town council, aside from the July 15th meeting?
After July 15th, no. Previous to July 15th, I would need to go back and look at my calendar specifically for the year 2019, if that's the question.
And you do not recall any other meetings aside from the July 15th meeting? I think we just need to make that clear. You don't recall.
Yeah, well, can I have a minute to look at my notes?
Sure.
Yes.
So I don't have anything right in front of me about specific other meetings from January 2019 to July 2019. I can't say definitively that I did not meet with the mayor or the council members between those dates, but I don't have anything in front of me specifically.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Weber. Mr. Malone.
And in fact, the July 15th, 2019 meeting with the mayor was the only time, at any time ever, that you or anyone from Skipjack met with the mayor or council or staff to discuss or even bring up the 12 megawatt turbines. Isn't that correct?
Can you restate that question, please?
Sure. The July 15th, 2019 meeting with the mayor, that was the only time that you or anyone else from Skipjack ever had any communications directly, not talking about PSC filings, but ever had any meetings with the mayor, the council, or the staff to discuss the 12 megawatt turbines. That was the only time ever. Isn't that true?
I don't know if that's true. As far as when we started deliberating over whether we would use the 12 megawatt turbines, I can't recall an exact date that we started deliberating over them. So prior meetings with the mayor may not have discussed 12 megawatt turbines because we weren't yet thinking about them.
And since then, up to the present, since July 15th, up to the present date, you, Skipjack, have never gone to have a meeting with the mayor or council or staff about the 12 megawatt turbines. Up to the present day, isn't that correct?
I believe I answered that question previously. Since July 15th, 2019, I have not met with the mayor about.
And I believe the witness has made that statement before. Mr. Maloney, I've given you quite a bit of flexibility for.
You were aware that the commission's order, quote, specifically conditioned its award on working with Maryland citizens, local, state, and federal authorities in addressing all environmental, visual, and impacts of public concerns, and that the order explicitly directed you to continue consultations with stakeholders directly affected by the viewshed, and to, quote, have an ongoing dialogue with the stakeholders regarding any changes to the siting and turbine model selection contemplated by the application pending before us. Do you agree that Skipjack has not complied with the condition to have an ongoing dialogue with the stakeholders concerning the changes to the siting of turbine and model selection based on your refusal to engage with the city?
Objection.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Can you hear me, counsel?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to sustain the objection. We're getting a little repetitive in terms of the questioning, and I'd like to remind all counsel that this evidentiary hearing is limited to potential impacts related to the change in turbine selection. Mr. Maloney, I see where you're going here, but this is getting outside of the scope of what this hearing was called to do. I think you've made some ground, but I'm not going to allow additional questions.
No, Mr. Chairman, in 2017, the mayor and council came before this commission, and the commission at 3 different times in the order made clear how critical it was for these applicants to have an ongoing dialogue about impact and siting and any changes in location, and that there was an explicit order at that point. It is very clear that because Skipjack didn't like the mayor and council's attitude, that they declined to communicate candidly and then communicate at all with the mayor and council of Ocean City, the elected people's representative, to deal with this. This is a serious issue, which the commission needs to take seriously, and it shouldn't be the subject of an abrupt cutoff as to what they did and didn't do here, when they made a decision to simply blatantly violate the commission's order because they didn't like what the city's attitude was.
Mr. Maloney, I see your point. You'll have an opportunity to brief that after the hearing, but I'm not going to permit any additional questioning along this line.
I have further questions.
Please continue.
At no time during the decision involving the 12 megawatt turbines did Skipjack meet with any members of the Ocean City Chamber of Commerce. Isn't that correct?
I have met with members of the Ocean City Chamber of Commerce. It was not to specifically discuss a 12 megawatt turbine.
At any time, did Skipjack have any communications with members of the Delmarva Condo Management Association? Excuse me, about the location of and the use of 12 megawatt turbines?
Objection, this is outside the scope of the proceeding, and
It's not,
we've been misquoting the order. I think if we're going to be talking about a specific condition, we should be pointing to it and all looking at the same language.
I just pointed to the language requiring engagement with the stakeholders on the issues of visual impact. All these individuals are obviously stakeholders in the visual impact issue.
The objection is sustained.
At any time, did Skipjack have any meeting, communicate at all with the Ocean City Hotel Motel Restaurant Association concerning the siting or location or use of 12 megawatt turbine?
Objection.
Sustained.
When in 5 of your testimony, you used the phrase that you met with industry and community events to center around development of offshore wind, and you state that you had the opportunity to meet with the broader Ocean City community regarding the project's development. Who and what are you referring to?
Sure. So we also, aside from myself and the presentations that I've given to various groups there since starting to work for the company Deepwater, we've also hired a full-time stakeholder relations manager named Megan Outen, who lives in Salisbury and has grown up on the Eastern Shore, and she has conducted many outreach meetings around education of offshore wind generally and our project specifically.
Did Skipjack ever conduct any meetings in Ocean City that were advertised to the Ocean City public or to which the Ocean City general public was invited to discuss these changes in the project and the siting and location of a 12 megawatt turbine?
The hearing in Ocean City in January was open to the public.
That was conducted by this commission at the request of Ocean City. My question is, did Skipjack, as part of its consultation obligations under the May 2017 order, ever conduct any meetings for the Ocean City community or the public, or invite members of the broader public of Ocean City to discuss and communicate with these issues, the residents of Ocean City?
I know that regular communication had been ongoing about the development of our project. So I don't recall one specific meeting where we would have said this is a meeting to discuss a 12 megawatt turbine.
And what you state on page 5 that Ocean City would have its opportunity for impact through the BOEM review process. When is that going to be, and what opportunity do they have there?
I don't know exactly when that will be, but I know that part of the purpose of BOEM doing that is to allow these kind of conversations to continue to happen and have the local communities be part of the permitting process.
Are you aware that Ocean City is not now part of the BOEM review process that is currently taking place?
I am not aware of the truth or falsity of that statement.
Have you seen any involvement by any local communities, stakeholders, or other groups in the BOEM review process to date?
I believe that we are in the part of the BOEM review process in which BOEM is reviewing our application for completeness, and the period of time when the local communities would be invited to engage is when our application is deemed complete. which hasn't happened yet.
Is it your plan, the plan of Skipjack, to continue not to communicate at all directly with the town of Ocean City concerning the issues that have been raised in this hearing, that are raised regarding this application? In other words, the subject of minimizing the project's impact on the Ocean City viewscape?
It is not my plan to not communicate with Ocean City going forward.
And I can speak to that as well. It's actually quite the opposite. I think we welcome engagement not only from the town of Ocean City, but from the many stakeholder groups and organizations inside the town limits of Ocean City and in the surrounding areas, both along the coastal communities in Delaware and inland throughout Worcester and Wycomico counties, where we have been engaged for some time.
Can I finish questioning Ms. Weber before we get to your testimony?
Of course, you just asked for forward-looking, and
We're examining one witness at a time here. Ms. Weber, and
They are testifying as a panel.
I understand that, but I'm questioning one witness at this point. Ms. Weber, is it your position that Ocean City will have to change its attitude about the project before you are willing to communicate with them? Or are you willing to communicate with them now to discuss the nature, location, and siting of these wind turbines?
Both Mr. Walker and myself are willing to communicate with Ocean City at all times.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Do any other parties wish to cross-examine Ms. Weber? Hearing none, do any commissioners have questions of Ms. Weber? Seeing no questions, counsel, do you have any redirect for your witness?
I just wanted to confirm, are we questioning Mr. Walker after, or does counsel?
Mr. Walker is next.
Okay. No redirect, Your Honor.
Okay. We're not going to go past 6 o'clock today, so we'll have a hard stop there, but we'll continue to use the next half hour unless there's any objection. Speak now if there is. Okay, we'll proceed for the next half hour with Mr. Walker. Please proceed, counsel. The counsel for Town of Ocean City.
I don't think we have no questions.
Do any other parties have cross-examination of Mr. Walker? Do any commissioners wish to question Mr. Walker based on his panel testimony? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Walker. You are excused. At this point, we will adjourn for the day. Madam Court Reporter, we could go off the record and we'll just discuss some preliminaries.
Sure.
Okay, so for the plan tomorrow, counsel for Skipjack will have Dr. Lang, is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Who will be sponsoring him, you or another attorney?
Mr. Curran.
Okay, thank you. And then Mr. Maloney, you're ready to present your witnesses tomorrow morning?
We are.
Thank you. Anything procedural we need to discuss before we reconvene tomorrow at 10 a.m.?
10 o'clock? Nothing from us.
No, Your Honor.
Any other parties?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. We stand in recess until 10 a.m. tomorrow, June 5th, 2020.
Thank you.